Welcome back to Tales of the PowerAge. Hi guys, how you doing? The normal crew here today, so great to see you. So, what we're covering today? Well, we're covering a band that were formed in Los Angeles. They've been based in San Francisco almost since forming in the Bay Area. They've shifted over 125 million albums. They've suffered tragedy, experienced infighting, had a legal battle with Napster, and they could be regarded as one of the biggest metal bands of all time. They've also managed to sell an astonishing 21 million concert tickets since 1982, which is absolutely amazing. Today, we're covering the And Justice for All album and tour, so taking us right back to 1988. And it would be good to just get a feeling of what the guys think about, of course, who we're talking about today, Metallica. So, Gappy, Metallica, yes or no?
Absolutely, yes for me. First got into them in 1986, listening to the Friday Rock Show. I can't remember what track would have been played, but I instantly knew I needed to go out and buy the Master of Puppets album, which I duly did. Took it to school because that's how old we were at the time. Took it into a maths lesson and showed it to Gav, who immediately loved everything about it. And I'm sure if it wasn't that day, it would probably have been the day after that we went back to his house and played it in its entirety. And the rest is history. What a fantastic band.
Brilliant. Thanks, Gaps. Jamo, Metallica, yes or no?
For me, yes, massively. But I was a little bit late to the party. I wasn't a big fan of Motorhead and the heavier side. I was more for Saxon, Lizzie, Maiden, and the AOR stuff, the Survivory type of stuff, and Boston. So for me, it was the following year after, not at school, it was at college. We were all at college. Obviously, we were pretty much all there together. And my mate of ours went to see Metallica. It's a really heavy band in Birmingham, and Anthrax, I think, was supporting, if I remember rightly. And we formed a band with them, and we played a couple of tracks, Creeping Death and For Whom the Bell Tolls, as part of our set. And that was my introduction. So for me, I then went back to the Ride the Lightning album. That's the first album I got into. And it was heavier than anything, A, that I'd heard, and B, that I actually liked. And I think Fade to Black helped that because it was a great transition in from the stuff.
Brilliant track.
Yeah,
and it opened it all up. And you thought, oh, hold on a minute, because they weren't just they were so fast, they were so heavy, but it wasn't just so fast, so heavy. There was something. They were very special. So yeah, that was my first taste. When we were playing as the band, when we were playing their songs, obviously it opened it up and it made you realise how brilliant they were. So yeah, that was my first taste.
Brilliant, fantastic. Now, before we go to Gav used to have a leather jacket which used to have little grey bits on the shoulders. And remember what Lars used to wear back in the day. Yeah. It was very similar, if not exactly the same. So I think I know what the answer is going to be on this one. Metallica, yes or no?
I had to paint that jacket to be exactly like Lars's. But yeah, I don't know where the jacket went, so that's a shame. But exactly, obviously tying in with Gappy's story. I can distinctly remember actually looking at the back of Master of Puppets and looking at those photos and thinking that is probably the coolest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. And I pretty much still think the same way about those photos. You know, do you remember the massive outdoor arena and Lars is moving his China symbol to get the light on his face?
Yeah.
Just so cool. And and that was enough. I already loved them just from the image. And then to hear that the production is kind of a sound that I hadn't heard before. The speed of it. I still love the production on that album as well. But the speed of it, the aggression of it, and back in the day, the lyrics. I think one of the things they probably lost a little bit over time. But every song had a particular lyrical theme. And it was so, again, as a drummer, the guitars were exactly in sync with the drums. The rhythm guitars and, James and Lars working so closely together. And I loved that, and the chugging, they did.
So heavy, wasn't it? Sounded like an exhaust, the guitars, I think, and a good exhaust as well.
Yeah. So, completely hooked. Missed that tour, sadly. I guess just a little bit. Not enough of us knew it, or I don't know. I don't know why we didn't go, but.
No, me either.
Wish we had, because that was the tour that Anthrax supported them.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You went, so.
And Cliff Burton was there.
Sorry?
And Cliff Burton was there.
Yeah. But James had broken his wrist, so
that's right. Yeah.
they weren't fully up to that speed, but by all accounts, I've got a review actually from Sounds. I found they were nearly blown away by Anthrax, but not. And imagine if those two fighting it out in their prime, absolutely amazing. So yeah.
Okay, excellent. So we got 3 yeses. It's a yes from me too. Almost feels like a Simon Cowell program. You'll be glad to know it's not. So we're going to keep on the metal theme. So Gav, prior to we're talking about the Damage Justice and Justice for All. Prior to releasing the album and the single and the tour, what preceded? Just remind everyone what preceded. Justice. So
yeah, we just I'm sure everyone watching this knows this anyway, so we won't spend any time on it. But before Puppets came their first two albums, Kill 'Em All, Ride the Lightning. Ride the Lightning was the first one with the same producer as Justice, and we'll probably talk a bit more about that later on. And that's what we've just been talking about, a groundbreaking album. And then obviously the tragic death of Cliff Burton on tour meant that they had to replace him with Jason Newsted. So this was kind of just getting Jason in, getting him acclimatized, doing a bunch of covers. So this was the Garage Days EP, and it was brilliant. I loved this at the time. And there were 2 versions. The American version had an extra track on it as well, so I had to go out and buy that as well. But yeah, that's a great release. And then prior to the album, we had a single. We had Harvester of Sorrow, which I thought was brilliant.
Harvester was released on the 29th of August.
Yeah, because the album was released on the 7th of September, I believe. I think the other 2 singles, if I'm not mistaken, came out once the album was released.
Yeah.
Yeah, Harvester was before, about 10 days before. And then Justice came out, and then One came out actually the following year.
They didn't do a video for Harvester of Sorrow, did they?
No.
So
that's that one, but they're continuing with the covers on the B-side and prints, which is absolutely brilliant.
By the way, at the time, you raise a good point around the video, Gappy, because Metallica were notorious for not doing videos for their at the time, for not doing videos for their songs. And you have to remember, in those sort of mid 80s to late 80s, it was MTV Central.
Yeah.
So to still explode massively, and actually been on independent labels up until the EP. So in the UK, they've been on Music for Nations, and when you'd look in Kerrang on the back pages where all the charts were, Metallica would constantly top the independent record charts, right? So, and then they started getting into the main chart, even on an independent label, which was amazing. So they move to Vertigo in the UK, and then released as you mentioned, the EP Gav, which was right before Donington, I believe. And then, of course, the everyone getting ready for the album, which, of course, we're covering today. So, Gav, anything else you want to cover off on those singles before we move to the album?
Just a little. Got that one.
Cool.
I'm not sure if this was UK. I think it might be US.
I'm going to say, I've never seen that before.
It's a beautiful thing. And that's got one and the one demo and one live. So 3 ones. And then there is another Curious, which is, I don't know if you can see that, but Metallica's in spot varnish. And this is kind of interviews with the road crew inside, which is quite nice. And that came out the following year as well. So
it was nice, but was it any good?
What, the one demo?
The interviews with the road crew.
Well, I guess they're just giving them some sugar, aren't they?
Strange thing to put on.
Yeah, just another thing to flog, isn't it? But yeah, we were talking about the video, and I think it's one of another thing that we really liked about Metallica is they were so contrary. You know, they knew their own minds, and they weren't going to comply with what everybody else was doing, and we loved them for that. You know, what is metal if it's not going against the grain? You know. And then when they did finally do a video, it was harrowing.
Yeah,
bloody brilliant.
Yeah.
That's what I was about to say. The way
I watched it again today. It's unbelievably good. It's so good.
Yeah.
But the
So
fact
they
that
bought the rights to a film, didn't they? And the song was based on, I think. And then being Metallica, they could afford to buy the rights to the film, and then they incorporated the clips from the film in with them jamming in a warehouse. And there are two versions of the video, actually. I've got the VHS in a slipcase, and there's one of just them jamming, and there's one of them with the movie in there as well.
All right, I haven't seen the other one.
Yeah.
So if you've not checked it out, go onto YouTube and have a look at the video, because it's very different to anything that was out at the time, to be fair.
Oh, yeah.
With all the talking over it as well. It's absolutely brilliant.
But at the time, the fact that they were so contrary, as you said, they didn't do videos, but then they left it, and then, right, we're going to do, and this is what we're going to drop, and we're going to drop it now. It's like, holy shit. Massive. No, it's a massive statement. And it's like, wow. Because actually, sometimes you just wondered, was it all part of their... Did Lars have this?
And we're going to drop a video with the mellowest song we've done as well. Yeah.
They have this plan that, that's what
the start of it anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And I was working where I was working at the time was a record company, and everybody at the record company was just in awe of this. You know, even people that weren't into metal totally respected this, and it was really interesting. You know, even kind of indie fans and all kinds of people just zeroed in on this for some reason. It's brilliant.
It's just they're so clever, so smart.
Yeah.
No wonder they then went on to become what they became.
Yeah.
That is Metallica.
Exactly.
So that leads us into the release of the album, which was released in the UK on the 7th of September. And again, fantastic. But what was really interesting about the record and the album, and I'll come to the guys in a minute to give their view, is that firstly it was a double album, which was really unusual for the time, to be fair, to be releasing an album that was double. It was just over 65 minutes long. And when you look at, we've talked before on another podcast around some of the lengths of the songs on Power Slave. This was right up against that. I know a few years later, but some of those songs and the length of the songs were incredible. So really exciting stuff, nicely packaged, albeit not gatefold, which would have been amazing had they done that. I think that would have been sort of the cherry on the cake had they done a gatefold with this, but pretty amazing packaging all the same. And I think we probably all went out and bought this either on the day of release or certainly in the first week, and ran home to get it on the turntable and ruin your parents' life for this for the next couple of months. With their
so you bought the vinyl when you straight out of the gate, did you?
Yeah.
I bought it the day it came out in Oxford.
Yeah, so I've got a copy here, Gavlet, with the nice inner covers. And the later editions that they do at their own Blackened studio are similar but different.
Yeah.
But again on Vertigo as well. So it's brilliant. It looks great.
I got the CD, sadly.
There you go.
Yeah.
The fact it wasn't a gatefold, it was almost like, oh, it's not a gatefold. But
I love the fact it wasn't a gatefold. I thought that was brilliant.
I was going to say, but it was okay because they still did two actual awesome inner sleeves.
Yeah, exactly.
And you want the inner sleeve. So it's like, oh, okay, that's cool.
And if you look on the first press, on the run out, which is the dead wax, the piece of that final bit of your vinyl, it's etched in on there, mastered, which is fantastic. And then you've got the A1s and 1, etc. for that first press, which is really nice to have. And I think if you're trying to pick up one of these first press copies now, either through eBay and Discogs, you'd have to pay a pretty penny to get your hands on one, to be fair.
That's why I haven't got it.
I didn't want to say. I was going to ask you, Gav, would you get the CD because it was cheaper than
No, because it was exactly the period when everyone was moving over.
True.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
So I got my nice HMV 1099 sticker there, still in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, and at the time I was all over the CD idea, the sound of it and everything, and I guess that leads us into where's the bass. It was such
I was going to do that because when I got it, I took it back to one of the guys whose band I was in at the time in Oxford on the Cowley Road. Neil, his name was, he was the drummer, and we put it on his record player and we put Blackened on, and obviously the beginning to Blackened is unbelievably good. But then it starts off, and I just turned around and looked at the other two guys who was in my band at the time, and where's the bass?
Yeah.
So, where is it? But did it detract from it for me being a bass player? It probably did a little bit, but it was so good that it really didn't matter that much.
Didn't mean you just had your own karaoke track to put your bass on.
Well, that's true, yeah.
So I think that the sound is so different from anything else, and even so different from Master of Puppets that
I was
you
totally
just
different from
you
Master.
just kind of accepted it, didn't you? I think we did. You know, it was just that was what they sound like at the moment. You know, that
The songs are so strong on that album. It really didn't matter to me.
No, me neither. And it still
position.
sounds really unique.
Yeah.
And it was the beginning of that. The bass drum is as snappy as the snare sound. You know, in my case, putting a 50p on the bass drum from a beater to hit it, so you get that slap sound.
You look at that picture of Jason, he just looks so pissed off, doesn't he? But that's exactly the look I was going for in 1988. Oh God, he looks so good.
Lars doesn't look that happy either. On the background.
I think they're just being metal, aren't they?
Exactly.
That's what we did in the day.
So this was the first album in the UK on a major label, so onto Vertigo. Double albums I've already mentioned. Some of the tracks are amazingly long. So Injustice for All, 9 minutes 44 seconds. To Live is to Die, 9 minutes 48 seconds. And actually, Cliff Burton got a writing credit on To Live is to Die.
Right.
Apparently, Jason Newsted followed the bass line that he'd written in the song. Although, to your point, you're absolutely right. No one could hear it. No one could hear hardly any of the bass on the album, which is odd. So,
what the credit is the talking. He wrote the words. Yeah. So this is the first album where Jason gets a credit, and the last album where Cliff Burton gets a credit. Interestingly.
So, what other songs stood out? For me, it was The Frayed Ends of Sanity. That was that's my favourite song on the album. I think it's brilliant. But any other songs that stand out for you guys?
I love Blackened.
I love Blackened. I also love Harvester of Sorrow.
Yeah.
And I also love Dyer's Eve, the closer, where it's pretty much Blackened's pretty thrash, but Dyer's Eve is even thrashier.
Yeah,
I was a total thrash metal fan at the time, and that's a great song.
Got to number 4 in the charts.
Well.
Yeah,
which is amazing.
Amazing, yeah.
Yeah, thinking about it. Jamie, any other songs that stand out for you on the album?
I mean, for me, it's Blackened and Blackened so strong at the start. No, it's just same as the other guys. Blackened and Justice for All. Around this time, I loved all their B-sides. I loved their covers. I loved the Prince Bread Fan.
Yeah.
I had my Creeping Death 12-inch, which I have here, which on the back of it has got Am I Evil and Blitzkrieg. So for me, and they've always been those tracks that I've just said, that half a dozen, just they blow me away every time. But this record's just so strong that it's madness. But Blackened for me, I love it.
But you had 2 bands, didn't you? You had the serious Metallica. Yeah. When you bought an album, you knew it was going to be a thing of beauty, and you had the fact that you could also respect that they were metal fans and they loved, especially British metal and British rock, and they paid homage to it on every B-side. So it was perfect to have those 2.
And British rock as well, British indie. We're putting a Killing Joke song on the Garage Days Revisited.
Yeah,
which I'd never heard before, and I think that's my favourite song on that EP, to be honest.
Is that The Weight?
Yeah,
brilliant song. So before we get onto the tour, and I promise I won't bore you all senseless for too long, I've been fortunate. I'm trying to lift it up so heavy. I was
hang on a minute, let me get you a little bit bigger.
There you go. So if anyone likes collecting vinyl and just stuff, right?
Wow, look at the size of that bad boy.
I love that.
It's so heavy. It's amazing. So look, I'll just pick out a few things just so you can see it, because if you got it, you'll know, and it's amazing. And actually, of all the box sets that Metallica have released, up until the Black Album or the Metallica album, whatever you want to call it, this is probably, in my opinion, the best of the box set. So you've got the album, but there's also a brilliant double album of Live in Seattle.
Nice.
And nice bit of gatefold going on as well, which of course I love a bit of gatefold, which is fantastic. Triple gatefold there. They also do all these brilliant things like passes from the day. There's a whole thing of patches, which again are absolutely fantastic. There's the 10-inch picture disc.
Nice.
Which again, nice picture of the band on the back. But they also put these like really funky things in as well. So there's all the lyrics being written and which is quite nice. There's a nice little poster. There's an amazing book that comes with it, showing all the stuff around the tours and pictures. And I mean, this is brilliant for a coffee table. But also, if you like CDs, I mean, there's just like hundreds of these CDs in there, including one of the Hammersmith shows that we went to, which I think is probably a nice segue into the tour. So, without talking about this box set too much, and if you can get your hands on it.
Before we leave the box set, I was listening to an interview with the producer, Flemming Rasmussen, and he was saying that there's his original scratch mix that he did before they reduced the bass is in that box set.
Oh.
I wouldn't mind hearing that sometime.
Yeah. Well, there's so much to hear, Gav. I like to look after this stuff and actually not play it. I know it sounds ridiculous.
I was going to say, have you ever played anything that's in there, Dill?
You might want to dig it out and have a listen. It sounds like
he's
happier with that mix than the final mix, is what he was saying.
Yeah, the CDs I don't play. The only thing I played is the live from Seattle disc album, which is amazing. But a lot of the other stuff I haven't, because I've downloaded digitally off of iTunes as well.
Gav, what an amazing thing for him to have said as an established producer that it's mixed with. It's produced by Lars and.
Yeah, it says produced by Lars and James and Flemming Rasmussen, and then engineered by Flemming Rasmussen.
Okay.
So if you've got the box set, or you've got other stuff about it, please like, subscribe, get involved, comment. We'd love to hear what you're saying. Get involved. So let's get on to the tour, shall we? And Gaps, I'll come to you first. Maybe if you can give us a bit of a what do you remember? I know we all went, right? So we all went to this tour. What do you remember?
Program City.
Classic.
There's a picture with their pants down, isn't there, on this big stage?
Yeah, on the back. Yeah.
That's all right at the back, which is hilarious. Yeah. So Gappy, what do you remember? Or can you remember anything?
Yeah, I remember. I remember a lot about this actually. I went on the final night of the Hammersmith Odeon run, which was 3 nights. So I went on the Tuesday, and I went with the guys from the band I was in at the time from Oxford. So I picked them both up in Oxford in my Mini, which I had at the time. Drove through the worst rain I've ever driven through in my entire life to reach Hammersmith, and it was in the days where you could actually park under the flyover. So I parked right outside, and we went in, and all I can remember, not all I can remember, but one of my abiding memories is my guitar player in my band. He was getting drunk. Obviously, I was driving, and after every single song, and I mean every single song, he shouted for Whiplash as loud as he could. And it got slightly embarrassing to a driver. You could only hear this one guy in the whole audience shouting Whiplash after every song, and he finally got his wish for the last one.
Was he still sober by the last song? He probably couldn't remember it by the time they played it.
Dear, oh dear. But what a set list that is. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And I remember the Lady Justice on the stage, which was brilliant. Someone may tell me I'm wrong, but I'm sure they blew it up for And Justice for All at the end.
Yeah, they did. It kind of slid apart.
The set list is just brilliant. I don't remember the bass solo, funnily enough.
I don't remember that either.
I don't think you could hear it.
It came.
Good one.
But look, it came before Master of Puppets, and then Damage Inc. after it. I mean, Jesus. 2 amazing songs off of Master. The set list is brilliant. It can't be faulted. And apparently, on the show that I went to, the last show of the Hammersmith run, they played Leper Messiah as well, or instead of one of the other songs on there.
To be verified, if anyone remembers differently, let us know.
Yeah. Okay.
But that's my ticket there for the centre stalls. It was on the first night. I found out today, or remembered today.
So you were actually the only one of us who went in the stalls. I was in the circle.
Yeah, well, if you didn't, then it's one of those things I can't remember who I went with. Sorry.
£8.
Yeah, £8.
Effectively a crappy cinema ticket, you know. Hammersmith always had the worst tickets, which we've mentioned before, but that's particularly crap.
But they had graduated to actual freaking cinema tickets, hadn't they? Whereas they used to be rubbish little token, like a little square thing. It then went, we're going to change it to something worse. How's that possible? I remember the statue blowing up at that. I remember that very clearly, very vividly.
Yeah, me too.
But as you said, for me, the set list is just ridiculous. And especially when you look back now. But the fact that the Last Caress and Am I Evil, putting them in the encore is just ridiculous, especially when it was the second encore. So back in those days, they did like an encore, didn't they? Bands. It's not so much nowadays. I don't think it's so much in the way of encores. But
and to have a guitar solo in the encore as well. That's weird. Yeah.
And then to think that there's Battery, right? Okay, well, just had a set, and then you're calling for them to come out, and then they come back out properly, and it'd be proper cheering and shouting for them to get out. They come out, Last Caress, Am I Evil, Whiplash, boom. Thanks.
Played for another 20 minutes.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
It was so cool. Such a. But the 3 nights at Hammersmith, that's quite something. They chose not to do a blood. Because that's this time is when bands were starting.
I was going to say that, Jam. Yeah. They were way bigger than 3 nights. They were way bigger than 3 nights at this point in time.
Most bands were playing the Wembley Arena then. I mean, back in the day with DC and that, we covered this off with AC/DC. They would do numerous nights at Hammersmith. It was the place to play, especially for rock. But Wembley Arena was taken out in the mid-'80s as gradually these bigger stadium bands from the States would come. They'd put them in Wembley Arena. Of course, it was before the O2. Wembley Arena was the arena in the UK, in England, wasn't it? In the UK.
It might have been something to do. I don't know who else was playing. Maybe that's all they could book. Jam, AC/DC did 4 nights at Wembley Arena that year.
Yes.
On the video tour. So they did 3 nights in, March, and then came back to do an extra night in April.
Yeah.
The 13th.
Yeah, I think some bands were quite vocal about wanting to do theatres rather than arenas as well. So it might have been that, because Marillion used to do that. Marillion did tours where they did 3 nights at Hammersmith at the beginning of the tour and then 4 nights at the end of the tour.
I was looking at that last night, literally at that misplaced, mental.
Yeah,
mental.
Proving it was a great time.
Fish didn't like doing arenas, but then eventually they had to because they were just so damn big.
Exactly. But for us young 16, 17, for this, what are we, 17, 18?
18. You were 19.
Jesus, don't age me.
Yeah, you were.
Day after your birthday. First gig.
Yeah. I'd have still been nice.
So they released the album, and I'm guessing, I need to check the tour dates. The UK would have been one of the first countries then, wouldn't they, after the album was released?
Yeah, it's on the first page of the programme.
Yeah.
No, they started touring in May.
Wow.
May, June, July, September.
They just carried on touring continually. I've got a ticket from Birmingham in 1990. So they hadn't released the Black Album or the Metallica, whatever you want to call it. And they were still, probably, you could argue, maybe even still on the show.
But I think the other thing for us, I think mainly with this Hammersmith run that we all went to, and it would appear on different nights as it happened, as we covered off, we'd seen them at a festival before. So this is our first indoor proper Metallica headline show, which I think would have helped to completely blow us away as well.
Absolutely.
So anyway, the damage.
You went twice, didn't you, to this one?
You what, Caps?
Didn't you go twice to Hammersmith?
Yeah, I went twice. Funny enough, I got 2 programs. No, I don't know, because I was so pissed one night. I forgot I hadn't. I wouldn't be surprised at the time.
Why have one when you can have 2?
Exactly. But yeah, I did do 2 of the 3 nights. I can't remember which 2, but I do remember it being brilliant. Now, yeah, these are some of my picks. I do collect. I've got a few plectrums from over the years.
Do you? Do you collect them?
Yeah, I've got a few. And I've actually, over the years, I've given a few of these away to people back in the day. I mean, I had more than this, but these are all stuck up in my room at home. So I'm guessing
the only ones I've got.
Oh,
it's one of the only plectrums I've got.
I don't know who's the big ones are, but I know is I couldn't use one.
That's Jason. That's Jason. Yeah. That's Jason's. The only person, I think, guitarist I've seen use a plectrum that big is, I can't remember his name, the lead guitarist of Cinderella, who passed away about a year ago, I think. He used to use big plectrums like that. But yeah, that was Jason's, and these were obviously Kirk and James.
Are they different?
No, they're exactly the same.
Yeah, I thought that's weird as well, isn't it?
Yeah, the one on the right looks slightly a different colour.
Yeah, they're just faded. gaps. You know, they're quite old
Yeah,
now.
look,
Aren't they? So
look at the colour change in mine.
yeah, but cool.
Did you get them all from the gig?
I can't remember. Yeah, they're all from the gig. I can't remember which one though. So around that time, obviously, I went to the 2 nights there. We'd seen them in Germany the year before, and then Donington, and then I saw them at the NEC as well a couple of times. I think not long after that. It was almost like you saw Metallica all the time back in those days.
Yeah.
When they seemed to be it was almost like Omni gig. You turn up and it would be Metallica again, which I'm not complaining about, by the way.
And festivals as well.
Yeah, so I did get those from around the time. I couldn't tell you what night, but yeah, these are from the gig. From the gig in Birmingham as well. I actually got James Hetfield's T-shirt. Well, it was his black vest T-shirt, and he had his hair stuck in the back of it as well, where he obviously ripped off, and it was really sweaty. It stank of BO. Sadly, it's one of those items I haven't got anymore. It's one of those things you lose over the test of time. But yeah, nice memories all the same. Brilliant gigs, brilliant live. God, they were amazing, weren't they, really, over that period? Absolutely fantastic. And leading up to their biggest selling album, which was the one that came after this, wasn't it?
Yeah, which went to #1 in the UK.
Yeah, they were massive. I mean, you didn't go, look, no one even really heard of Metallica in the village that I came from. Again, going back, their independent label. And then, of course, as soon as they released the Black Album, Enter Sandman, you'd go in the local pub and it was on the bloody jukebox all the time. And said, I didn't put that on. How come that's on it? So yeah, it was amazing. So
we were on holiday when that came out, and it went to #5, and we were like, "Yeah, this is amazing."
3 of the 4 of us were together. If I remember, in a car listening to the top of the Sunday night charts, waiting for Metallica to come. And what number was it? I can't remember.
The first time we heard Enter Sandman, we were on actually us 3, me, you, and Gav, were on holiday in Cornwall.
Yeah,
that was the first time we heard it.
Yeah,
and we loved it.
Funnily enough,
straight out of the box. No, I think we listened to that countdown thinking, well, we must have missed it then. We're in the top 10 now, so it must have been 23 or something, and it came on at #5. I was like, what the hell? Yeah. Our band, #5? Unbelievable.
Yeah. And they looked brilliant, didn't they, at the time? They were absolutely fantastic. They were really antidote to all the other stuff that was out at the time. It was a big hair metal time, wasn't it? And Metallica were really antidote to all of that, because they were just straight down the line heavy metal, and they looked brilliant and they sounded brilliant. So
I was looking at our gig listing that we're trying to compile a gig listing, and just looking at the Hammersmith dates for that year. Brace yourselves, fellas. May, Megadeth. June, Judas Priest.
Yeah.
September, Slayer. October, Metallica. November, Halloween. That's just Hammersmith. We went to other gigs as well, including Dave Lee Roth at Wembley in November.
Yeah.
AC/DC at Wembley in April and March.
Yeah, I mean, God. But that was just one venue. You know, we practically had a residence pass going back every month.
And of course, the classic Donington of '88.
All blokes from the Shires that didn't live anywhere near London. It was pretty good.
Again, perhaps that's why we were so darned cool. We weren't cool.
Yeah, we were hot, of course. Yeah, so
lifts off people.
Brilliant. Okay, so it sounds like a resounding yes for Metallica. We love the album. Interesting production, as you've said. Some nice facts about the album as well. If you haven't got it, I'd strongly advise that you go and get it. Get it on vinyl. You can't beat playing this on vinyl. It's as it's supposed to be played, how it's supposed to be listened to. It's fantastic. And if you've not heard of any of the albums that preceded that, I'd strongly recommend Master of Puppets. Probably the greatest piece of work. It's absolutely first class from start to end. But look, brilliant band. We were really lucky to be there. I'm sure a lot of you people that are watching this were there as well and have got your own thoughts and memories from the time. So as always, please like, share, comment, get involved, and we'll see you on our next podcast. Thanks, guys.
Cheers,
everybody.
See ya.